We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lepakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Donald Trump names campaign manager Susie Wiles as his White House chief of staff, signals a seismic shift in policies by suggesting he will talk to Vladimir Putin. US President Joe Biden pledges peaceful transfer of power, urges Americans to bring down the temperature in contrast to Trump's refusal to accept 2020 defeat. US stocks closed higher after Fed Reserve cuts interest rates by a quarter point. Chief Jerome Powell says election results have no near-term policy impact. Zelensky addresses European leaders, says it's unacceptable for Europe to offer the Kremlin concessions. European leaders stress self-reliance on security. And Cuba slowly restores power after Hurricane Rafael leaves 10 million people in the dark. Well, on to the top story this hour. US President-elect Donald Trump has announced his campaign manager Susan Wiles to serve as his White House chief of staff. It is Trump's first major appointment since winning this week's election, entrusting a top position to a political operative who helped him win the election. Wiles will be the first woman to serve as White House chief of staff. Wiles is a long-time Florida-based political strategist and is viewed as trustworthy and has got plaudits for helping to manage Trump's successful run for the presidency. Trump chose Wiles over former House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy, a California Republican who is close to Trump and has been a frequent visitor to Mar-a-Lago.
Appreciation for Susie and Chris, the job you did. Susie, come here. Come here, Susie. Chris, come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay sort of in the back, let me tell you. The Ice Maiden, we call her the Ice Maiden. Come here, Chris. Come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay in the background. She's not in the background. Come here, Susie.
Well, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has appointed Ambassador Stephen Mull to coordinate the transition to Donald Trump's administration on behalf of the State Department, though the State Department has not yet made contact with the Trump transition team. Spokesperson Matthew Miller said that Blinken intends to use his remaining time in office to make tangible progress on a number of critical issues, including on competition with China, ensuring Ukraine is in the best possible position for success, and bringing an end to the fight in Lebanon and Gaza.
Over the past 2 days, Secretary Blinken has been meeting with people from across the department to discuss the work ahead of us over the next 74 days between now and January 20th. In those meetings, he has emphasized 2 points. First, the peaceful transfer of power is an essential element of our democracy that is vital to our nation's security. That's why it's so important for us to conduct a smooth, efficient, and professional transition process. The Secretary has appointed Ambassador Stephen Mull, a distinguished member of the State Department family, to coordinate these efforts on behalf of the department. Ambassador Mull will work with the President-elect's team to ensure as successful a transition as possible.
Well, as we told you that Trump is choosing his team, with Susie Wiles appointed first woman chief of staff. Indian Americans like Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard are also being considered for important posts. DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh tells us more from outside Mar-a-Lago, where all the buzz is taking place.
Oh, Donald Trump is right behind me here at Mar-a-Lago, closeted with his team. strategists to choose his next team or his cabinet major appointments. As you know, President Biden has already invited him to the White House, which he said that he'll be doing that shortly. He hasn't done it as of now. That's almost customary here. The incumbent president invites the president-elect to work with him as a transition team. What happens here is that the president-elect becomes the president only in January next year. There's a whole process of electors being confirmed by the Secretary of States of the states, and then that being sent to the Congress, where the Senate President formally on the 6th of January announces the electors, and the President is chosen and he takes over in January. But during that period, the transition team works closely with the current team. In that sense, Joe Biden has become a lame duck president. He cannot take major decisions without consulting Donald Trump and his team. So the transition team will take over, but he's choosing his team. In a first appointment today, he named Susan Wiles, the first woman chief of staff at the White House. She's a close loyalist of Donald Trump, was his chief campaign manager. He referred to her in his victory speech, calling her Ice Baby, which means that she is somebody who keeps in the background, doesn't show up much either on media or publicly, but handled her campaign very effectively. So he's rewarded her. The 67-year-old becomes the first woman chief of staff at the White House. There are other appointments being considered. Kash Patel is one of them. He could be, he's being considered, as we hear in media reports and political circles, for the CIA director. There are many names doing rounds for the AG's post or the Attorney General's post, because that's going to be very, very important given the legal cases against Donald Trump, and would want to work with the courts to see that those cases are dropped. Though once he becomes president, Donald Trump gets presidential immunity, but he would want the cases to be dropped. So AG is a very important post. We hear Eric Schmidt's name doing rounds. These are, of course, all speculations and unofficial and not announced as of now. The other names doing rounds are Tulsi Gabbard. Elon Musk could head the new Department of Government Efficiency, where he would look at cutting $2 trillion from the federal budget to bring in efficiency into the government. That could mean a lot of loss of jobs. He could apply his hardcore corporate style of functioning on the government to see that government becomes more efficient. So right now what is happening is there is a lot of jockeying going on to get into Donald Trump's team.
All right, and moving on, despite spearheading successful campaigns, Susan Wiles has maintained a low profile. While she may relatively less experience in holding official posts, Wiles has been a well-known face in Republican circles. Based out of Florida, Wiles led Trump's campaigns in 2016 and 2020. She also managed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' winning campaign in 2018. In 2012, she managed former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman's presidential bid. She also worked as a scheduler in Ronald Reagan's successful presidential campaign in 1980. Well, U.S. President Joe Biden has said in an address to the nation from the White House that he will ensure a peaceful and orderly transition to Donald Trump after the Republicans' sweeping election win. Biden urged Americans to bring down the temperature following Donald Trump's election victory and sought to console fellow Democrats who were alarmed by the former president's stunning comeback. Biden said Tuesday's election had proven the integrity of the U.S. electoral system and said he would preside over an orderly transfer of power.
Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature. I also hope we can lay to rest the question about the integrity of the American electoral system. It is honest, it is fair, and it is transparent. And it can be trusted. Win or lose, I will do my duty as president. I'll fulfill my oath, and I will honor the Constitution. On January 20th, we'll have a peaceful transfer of power here in America.
Well, Donald Trump has secured a historic mandate in the U.S. presidential elections. My colleague Shubhendu Ghosh is in Washington, D.C. He scans through how prominent newspapers are covering Trump's return to power.
We are in front of the U.S. Capitol. This is the legislative arm of the American government. Here, Donald Trump has recorded a thumping win in the presidential elections. Republicans are also taking control as far as the Capitol is concerned. Now, let's take a look at the manner in which the prominent newspapers talk about Trump's big win. We begin with the Washington Post. The headline on the front page reads, "Dawn of a new Trump era. The big win may give license for radical changes to the leadership." Also, Kamala Harris says that the fight that fueled her run is going to endure and she's going to fight for the values that she stood for. The front page, another article piece talks about the manner in which most counties across the United States, it shows on a map, urban, suburban and rural have swung rightwards. Historic realignment of the electorate has taken place. It talks about the manner in which in key swing states that decided the elections, Trump also cut into the traditional Democratic strongholds, urban areas, high-income suburbs in Pennsylvania, black voters in Wisconsin, for example, and Arab voters in Michigan, just to say manner in which Trump had a wider appeal across the electorate in the United States of America. Next paper we turn to is the New York Times. In bold, the headline reads, "Trump storms back. He defeats Harris and caps his resurgence from outcast to felon to president-elect." The picture of Donald Trump with his wife, Melania Trump, on the election night at West Palm Beach, Florida. It says impeached twice, convicted on 34 felony counts. Mr. Trump, the 45th president, is now poised to become the 47th president. And another article, an interesting one as to what were the preferences of the voters. It reads, "Democracy fears lost out to everyday worries." It says the manner in which Kamala Harris had appealed to the voters that it's a choice that they have, democracy, constitutional rights and bedrock freedoms, as opposed to Donald Trump's chaos and division. But the voters of America have spoken. And the nation replied. The answer from more than half of the voters of the country seem to be dismissing the warnings against Mr. Trump, that he was a threat to principles on which the country has been founded. Abstract truths mattered less to the voters, it seems, than the tangible issues like ability to pay rent or concerns over illegal immigrations and border crossings. So we now turn to the Financial Times, the big picture of Donald Trump and Melania Trump on the front page. The headline is simple, says it all. Trump is back. It also goes on to talk about the economic implications of it. Stocks open at a record high amid global fears of tariffs, the tariff war that Trump's previous tenure. An important piece of trivia in the paper, at 78 years old, Trump will be in January the oldest U.S. president to be sworn into the office. His running mate, though, 40 years old, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, is going to be one of the country's youngest vice presidents. Those were some of the highlights in the newspapers as Trump wins the big elections in the U.S. With camera person Jaishankar, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Washington, D.C.
And still to come on DD India News Now. White House says U.S. will keep up aid to Ukraine. Japan's parliament prepares to choose a prime minister. And Typhoon Yinsing brings violent wind and rain to northern Philippines.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on. Meanwhile, even though Trump is set to become 47th president of the United States, the final results are yet to come. Trump has so far secured 295 electoral votes, while Harris has captured 226. Final calls have yet to be made by two outlets in Arizona and Nevada. Trump has been declared the winner in more than half of the U.S. 50 states, including key battlegrounds Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all of which voted Democratic in the last election. And Donald Trump made a remarkable return to power following his presidential election victory, but the inauguration is still 2.5 months away. Several steps remain before he receives the White House keys. Here's a look at the steps which are taken between Election Day and the presidential inauguration on the 20th of January 2025. The date for Trump's visit to White House is not yet confirmed as the transition is ongoing, though Trump has surpassed the Electoral College threshold that wins him the presidency. The current president, Joe Biden, has already invited his successor to the White House, and Trump's team says the visit will take place shortly. The state certification will be issued on the 17th of December. Each of the 50 states plus Washington conducts a thorough review of the process of counting and aggregating ballots. After officials verify the complete and accurate record of their state's election, the electors are required to meet on 17th of December to cast their votes and certify the election in their state. While the congressional certification is issued on January 6th, the ballots are ceremoniously brought to the U.S. Capitol, and a joint session of Congress formally counts the electoral votes. Also, as President of the Senate, the U.S. Vice President is entrusted with making the final certification of the election. Staffing up such a massive administration takes time, and wheels are already churning. Team Trump has named his former Small Business Administrator Linda McMahon and businessman Howard Lutnick as transition co-chairs. Trump has said he could name tech titan Elon Musk as an advisor on government efficiency and vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to oversee health and food policy. Well, the U.S. Federal Reserve on Thursday slashed interest rates by 25 basis points amid cooling inflation and a weakening labor market, marking the second rate cut in this easing cycle. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell told reporters on Thursday that the U.S. Central Bank has no near-term plans to change policy following the outcome of this week's election. Upon asking if he would resign when asked to leave early by President-elect Donald Trump, Powell clearly gave a no. Powell said the labor market has cooled and remains solid, while the inflation has eased substantially from a peak of 7% to 2.1% as of September.
So let me say that in the near term, the election will have no effects on our policy decisions. As you know, many things affect the economy, and anyone who writes down forecasts in their job will tell you that the economy is quite difficult to forecast looking out past the very near term. Here, we don't know what the timing and substance of any policy changes will be. We therefore don't know what the effects on the economy would be, specifically whether and to what extent those policies would matter for the achievement of our goal variables, maximum employment and price stability.
Well, let's take a look at this chart showing changes in the benchmark interest rates of the United States Federal Reserve since 2000. We specifically look at the change in past 3 years. In 2022, interest rates were hiked 5 times, mostly by 75 basis points. From 1.50% in June, interest rates were hiked to 4.50% in December. The next year, in 2023, the rates were hiked 4 times with 25 BPS each in February, March, May and July, reaching at 5.50%. Fed on Thursday made its second rate cut of this year, with the decision coming less than 2 months after the central bank's surprise jumbo cut in September. And moving on, Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President-elect Donald Trump indicated that they were ready to hold talks after the Republican tycoon emerged as the victor in the race for the White House. Putin congratulated Trump and said Moscow was ready for dialogue with the Republican president-elect. Trump also revealed that he was also prepared for a conversation with Putin. Trump said he had spoken to probably 70 world leaders since Wednesday morning, but revealed that he had not spoken to Putin yet. Further, Putin praised Trump for handling himself during an assassination attempt at a rally. He said Trump turned out to be a courageous person at a discussion club in the Russian Black Sea resort of Sochi.
If any of them want to resume contacts, I have always said, and I want to say it again, we have nothing against it. As you wish, let us resume contacts and hold discussions. Well, there are many who want to hold discussions. There is a whole room here. So if not, we will hold the discussions with you. We are.
Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin also said on Thursday that if Ukraine did not remain neutral, then it would be used against Russia. But he also said that Moscow was ready for talks on a way to end the conflict based on the realities on the ground.
If there is no neutrality, then it is difficult to imagine the existence of any good neighborly relations between Russia and Ukraine, because this means that Ukraine will be constantly used as a tool in somebody else's hand and to damage the interest of the Russian Federation. Thus, the basic conditions for normalization of relations will not be created. On the contrary, we are determined to create conditions for a long-term settlement, and so that Ukraine finally becomes an independent sovereign state and would not be a tool in the hands of third countries.
Meanwhile, in view of the power shift, the US and the UK said their support for Ukraine remains ironclad.
We're going to surge and get that out there to Ukraine. We understand how important it is to make sure they have what they need. And so that hasn't changed. That is no different. And so we're going to surging that aid to Ukraine. We have taken action to strengthen Ukraine's air defenses and enhance their battlefield capabilities. And so we are committed.
I've just come from a meeting with President Zelensky, and it was an opportunity for me to repeat and affirm our ironclad support of Ukraine. And the broader point here in Hungary at this meeting has been that this isn't just about the sovereignty of Ukraine, although of course it is about that. It's also about our freedom, our democracy and our values.
Also, European leaders met on Thursday in Budapest after Donald Trump's election victory, expressing a shared realization. Europe must take charge of its own security. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, speaking about the summit with over 40 European leaders, underscored a critical shift. He said, "We cannot wait for the Americans to protect us." This gathering of the European political community saw leaders weighing varied opinions, but ultimately finding common ground, a call for Europe to act independently to ensure its peace and security.
There was an agreement that the American election results should be reacted to. We need to know that big changes are coming and we need to react to it. There was an agreement that there should be peace in Europe as soon as possible. There was an agreement that Europe should assume greater responsibility for its own peace and security in future. To put it even more bluntly, we cannot expect Americans to be the only ones to take care of us.
Well, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says it would be unacceptable for Europe to offer the Kremlin concessions to halt Russia-Ukraine war. Speaking to European leaders at a summit in Hungary, Zelensky blasted those who were urging him to give in to some of President Vladimir Putin's demands and urged Europe and the United States not to loosen ties following the election of Donald Trump.
In the European political community summit in UK, In July, there has been much talk about the need to yield to Putin, to back down, to make some concessions. And really some, even from Europe, some leaders were strongly advocated Ukraine making concessions to Putin. It's unacceptable for Ukraine and unacceptable for all Europe.
Well, Japan will elect its new Prime Minister at a special parliamentary session that is expected to begin next Monday, that is 11th of November. Lawmakers will vote for Prime Minister on the first day of the session, which is slated to last 4 days. The need for election came after the ruling party suffered a major defeat in October 27th lower house election, in view of which current Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and his ruling Liberal Democratic Party and leader of the largest opposition party, the Constitutional Democratic Party, Yoshihiko Noda, are calling on smaller parties for support. A party leader must secure majority support in parliament to become the Prime Minister. If neither exceeds that threshold, a vote will be proceeded to a runoff, and the candidate who secures the most votes will secure the post. And some weather news. Hurricane Rafael tore through western Cuba, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Power was restored to parts of Cuba on Thursday, a day after Hurricane Rafael swept over the island, leaving its 10 million inhabitants without electricity. The storm, with fierce winds and torrential rain, damaged countless homes and a local stadium and uprooted trees across the region. The hurricane had spun off westwards into the Gulf of Mexico, where it no longer posed an immediate threat to the land. Well, over 22% of crude oil production was shut in U.S. Gulf of Mexico due to the hurricane also. And Typhoon Yincheng lashed the northern Philippines with violent winds and rain damaging houses and toppling power lines. Many villages were returning to emergency shelters, and disaster response teams were again put on alert in Cagayan and other northern provinces. The hurricane tore down trees and infrastructures, causing major destruction to the region. Around 20 storms strike the Philippines each year on average, bringing heavy rains, strong winds and deadly landslides. Well, wildfires that engulfed California has been partially contained in the mountain fire area as Santa Ana winds subside. Strong winds that had fueled the blaze were subsiding, aiding firefighting efforts, but Ventura County Sheriff Jim Fryoff cautioned the threat was ongoing. Over 10,000 people were ordered to evacuate from ranches and neighborhoods northwest of Los Angeles as the wildfire swept through, destroying dozens of homes. And rescuers raced to evacuate villagers living around Indonesia's Mount Lewotobi Laki-Laki as far as possible after the volcano erupted 8 times, spewing a plume of volcanic ash up to 8,000 meters high. Thousands of people had been evacuated to other villages. The local government has declared a state of emergency, meaning the central government could help provide aid to the residents. 4 small airports in Flores Island have been closed due to the eruption. And a November blizzard warning has been issued for parts of southwestern state of New Mexico, where several feet of snow are expected to fall between Thursday and Saturday. Due to hazardous driving conditions, New Mexico State Police have closed several roads, including Interstate 25 that links New Mexico, Colorado and Wyoming. Over 30,000 customers are without electricity in the central part of the state as heavy snowfall hit the region. While centuries-old performance depicting dances of gods and goddess was performed in Nepal's Lalitpur, the 383-year-old Kartik Naach festival showcases different episodes of Lord Vishnu's stories over the course of several days. Initially, the dance was performed for 5 days, then it was extended to 15 days. The festival will run up till 15th of November. And still to come, DD India News Hour. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar addresses the 8th roundtable of ASEAN-India network of think tanks in Singapore. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address election rallies in the poll-bound western Indian state of Maharashtra. More on the elaborate festivities of Chhath Puja in honor of the sun in India and overseas.
As our ecosystems change, we not only need to amplify our efforts to save them, but we also need to adapt our lives.
Today, everything grows here. At an altitude of 5,000 meters, we grow mushrooms, strawberries, watermelon, and tomatoes. It's been made possible by the introduction of technology.
It's like with stocks. You diversify your portfolio to minimize risk. That's what we're trying to do with the mixed forest, too.
People's mindset is changing in favor of electric mobility, and I see huge success in the future as well.
Same eelgrass is one of the most important elements in the ecosystem along the Baltic Sea coast. It produces oxygen and provides habitat for smaller fish.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is in Singapore on the second leg of his two-nation visit, where he addressed the 8th roundtable of ASEAN-India network of think tanks, emphasizing the importance of advancing regional connectivity in light of recent global events, highlighting some of India's initiatives like trilateral highway to Southeast Asia, the India-Middle East-Europe corridor, and the International North-South Transport Corridor. He added that both sides are also actively discussing developments in digital and energy connectivity.
Recent conflicts and extreme climate events have only underlined the case for new connectivity initiatives. Where India is concerned, the trilateral highway to the east, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, and the International North-South Transport Corridor, INSTC, are major commitments. Understanding their implications is key to exploiting the opportunities they could present. Digital and energy connectivity have also been the subject of recent conversations, especially between India and Singapore.
While beginning the day, EAM met Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Trade and Industry Gan Kim Yong. Both sides discussed taking forward contemporary India-Singapore partnership with a focus on industrial parks, green energy, skilling, innovation and semiconductors. Well, India has reacted strongly to the reports that Canada blocked Australian news outlet airing External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's press conference. India has said such actions highlight Canada's hypocrisy towards freedom of speech.
We've also seen that we understand that the social media handles and pages of this particular outlet, which is an important diaspora outlet, has been blocked and are not available for viewers in Canada. This happened just an hour or so, a few hours after this particular handle carried the press conference of External Affairs Minister along with Penny Wong. And the particular media outlet also had several articles on the visit of the External Affairs Minister, as also an interview of External Affairs Minister. So we were surprised. It looks strange to us. But nonetheless, what I would say that these are actions which yet again highlight the hypocrisy of Canada towards freedom of speech.
Well, during his Australia visit, which ended on Thursday, Dr. Jaishankar met Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and also co-chaired the 15th Foreign Ministers Framework Dialogue with Wong. We get you this detailed report.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar visited Australia from 3rd to 7th November 2024. During this visit, Dr. Jaishankar attended a number of events. During his meetings with CEOs and business leaders in Sydney, the minister underlined the ongoing transformations in India in digital infrastructure, manufacturing and skilling.
We've done less than 150 days of the third term, but even in this period, we have made we've taken some very big calls. Among the calls which might be of interest to you, one is to set up 12 major industrial zones across India with a view to attracting global manufacturing and promoting domestic manufacturing. Secondly, to double down on the infrastructure spending because the infrastructure investments are still primarily driven by government spending. Three, a big focus on human resources development, on skills.
Dr. Jaishankar also met with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on November 6th in Canberra. They discussed ways to deepen the bilateral comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries. On November 5th, Dr. Jaishankar co-chaired the 15th Foreign Ministers Framework Dialogue, or the FMFD, with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong in Canberra. The leaders reviewed entire gamut of bilateral relations, including political and strategic, defense and security, trade and investments, education and mobility. At the Raisina Down Under 2024 session in Canberra, Dr. Jaishankar spoke about India's priorities in the Indo-Pacific and opportunities for greater collaboration with Australia and New Zealand. India's External Affairs Minister also inaugurated the Consulate General of India at Brisbane in Australia. The new consulate in Brisbane is India's fourth in Australia, alongside the existing consulates in Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
And moving on, ahead of Maharashtra Assembly polls, political heavyweights from Delhi are descending on the state for one last voter outreach before ballots are cast. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address two election rallies in Dhule and Nashik today. Meanwhile, Bharatiya Janata Party leaders discuss the campaign strategy for the upcoming Maharashtra and Jharkhand Assembly elections, including the by-polls in several states at a meeting in the national capital on Tuesday. The voting in Maharashtra is scheduled for the 20th of November, while Jharkhand will vote in two phases on the 13th and 20th of November. The votes for both assembly elections will be counted on the 23rd of November. And ruckus erupted in Jammu and Kashmir's assembly for the third day as MLAs raised slogans. Baramulla MP Sheikh Abdul Rashid's brother and MLA Khurshid Ahmed Sheikh marshalled out of the house. The Jammu and Kashmir Assembly was adjourned for the day on Thursday following a brawl between the BJP MLAs and marshals as the opposition members protested against a resolution for the restoration of the erstwhile state's special status for the second consecutive day. And in a move to strengthen India-Bhutan ties, an immigration checkpost at Daranga land port in Assam's Tamalpur district was inaugurated on Thursday. Located just 700 meters from the Bhutanese border, this 14.5-acre facility is designed to boost regional connectivity and economic growth. Assam's Governor Lakshman Prasad Acharya and Bhutan's Prime Minister Dasho Shering Tobgay attended the ceremony. With its strategic location near National Highway 27 and Bhutan's enhanced customs infrastructure, the new ICP is set to streamline cross-border travel and trade, promoting prosperity in the region. And the four-day Hindu festival of Chhath Puja culminates today. During the festival, devotees honor the sun for bestowing a long, healthy and prosperous life. Its unique rituals involve praying to the rising and setting sun while standing in a body of water. It begins with a 36-hour fast after a meal of chapati and rice pudding, and during the fast, devotees keep off drinking water. The festival is observed 6 days after Diwali. Well, the major Hindu festival of Chhath has recently traversed beyond India. The Indian diaspora in the United States, the United Kingdom and other countries has taken the celebrations to foreign shores. Donning big vermilion on forehead, Indians abroad say they feel great to be able to follow the rituals and keep the family traditions alive far away from home.
We have been celebrating Chhath here for over 5 years now, and from the first day, Kaddu Bhat, Kheer Roti, and today we have enjoyed it a lot, and we're going to have a lot of fun together.
Well, let's take a look at other stories making news today. President Draupadi Murmu will address the Central Vigilance Awareness Week function in New Delhi on Friday. This year, the week will be observed from the 28th of October to 3rd of November with the theme Culture of Integrity for Nation's Prosperity. As the festive season wraps up, Indian Railways is set to run 164 special trains starting on Friday to help passengers return to their destinations. Over the next 3 days, around 476 trains are scheduled to accommodate the post-festival travel rush. Indian Coast Guard Chief Director General S. Paramesh called on Union Home Minister Amit Shah and briefed him about the vital role played by the force in protecting national maritime zones, law enforcement at sea, pollution response and SAR operations. The meeting also emphasized on ICG efforts towards self-reliance and indigenization, highlighting the importance of cooperation among armed forces for robust coastal security. Devotees conducted Ram Leela play in London. The event, which enacted the life and adventures of Lord Ram, was conducted with great enthusiasm, attracting a large audience from across the globe. With its rich cultural displays and communal spirit, Ram Leela in London not only honoured Indian heritage but also promoted unity and cultural understanding, serving as a bridge between generations and communities. And still to come, DD India News Hour. South Africa clashes with India in 4-match T20 series from today in Durban. Real Madrid forward Kylian Mbappe to not be part of French squad against Israel and Italy in Nations League game. And we'll show you glimpses of adorable giant panda cubs wrestling with each other. Stay tuned.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome to Chandigarh.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Nipakshi Khurana. On to some business news now. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite closed higher on Thursday after the Federal Reserve announced a cut of 25 basis points in interest rates. Markets had almost fully priced in a 25 basis point rate cut for the November meeting and will now eye upcoming commentary from the central bank for guidance about the path of monetary policy. The S&P 500 gained 0.74%, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 1.51%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell to 43,729.34. And in other markets around the world, European stocks regained ground on Thursday, boosted by technology and resources shares, while Britain's FTSE 100 dipped after the Bank of England cut interest rates but projected higher inflation following the new government's first budget. Central banks in Norway and Sweden also held meetings on Thursday, though they met markets' expectations and did little to disrupt currency markets. Sweden's Riksbank cut by 50 basis points, Bitcoin eased by 0.3%, Brent crude oil futures fell 0.7% per barrel. While Indian equity benchmark indices opened in red on Friday, while BSE Sensex declined over 378 points, Nifty 50 witnessed 0.29%. Asian stocks rose broadly on Friday, tracking Wall Street's overnight rise to record highs as investors digested the Federal Reserve's message for careful interest rate cuts, even with expectations for big fiscal spending under incoming President Donald Trump. While you're watching DD India News Hour, time now for some sports news. South Africa begins a four-match T20 international series against India at Kingsmead, Durban on Friday, following their defeat in the T20 World Cup final by the visitors over 4 months ago. The teams have undergone substantial alterations compared to those that competed in Barbados, where India secured victory with a 7-run margin. The South African side will be without key performers from their World Cup campaign, including pace bowlers Kagiso Rabada and Anrich Nortje, spinner Tabriz Shamsi and wicket-keeper batsman Quinton de Nock. India's squad features only 4 players from their World Cup winning team, as the majority prepare for a test series in Australia. The remaining players are captain Suryakumar Yadav, Hardik Pandya, Akshar Patel and Arshdeep Singh. And coach Didier Deschamps revealed Real Madrid forward Kylian Mbappe will not be part of the French squad to face Israel and Italy in Nations League games. The 25-year-old superstar was not part of the squad last month either, citing fitness reasons, prompting controversy and criticism towards him. Now Mbappe has been left out of the French squad once again. Mbappe happens to be the captain of the French national team. However, he's been struggling to make an impact at Real Madrid, which might have played a part in his exclusion from the squad. And the top 2 Serie A sides, Napoli and Inter Milan, who are separated by 1 point after the last round of games, are set to clash this weekend. Inter lessened the gap to the leaders when they beat Venezia 1-0 on Sunday after Napoli was shocked in a 3-0 home defeat by Champions League side Atalanta earlier that day. Last weekend's defeat was a hard pill to swallow for Napoli coach Antonio Conte, as he lost a Serie A home game as a manager by a margin of 3 goals for only the 2nd time in his career. Atalanta moved up to 3rd with 22 points, 3 behind Napoli, who they upset last time to clinch their 5th consecutive league win. And defending champion Iga Swiatek thumped Russia's Daria Kasatkina 6-1, 6-0 at the WTA finals. Polish second seed Swiatek thrashed Kasatkina, who replaced the injured Jessica Pegula on Wednesday in only 51 minutes at the end-of-season event in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. She won an extraordinary 51 of 74 points and broke Kasatkina's serve 5 of 6 times. 5-time major champion Swiatek beat Krejcikova and lost to Goff in her first 2 group matches. Swiatek's form has dipped in recent months, with Wim Fissette replacing Tomasz Witsogove as her coach 2 weeks ago. And Cricket West Indies on Friday announced a 2-match suspension for pacer Alzarri Joseph after his on-field argument with captain Shai Hope during the 3rd ODI against England in Bridgetown on Wednesday. Joseph's heated tiff with captain Hope occurred after West Indies had opted to field in the series decider against England. Joseph was displeased with the field setting offer to him against English batter Jordan Cox in the 4th over of the England innings, following which the 27-year-old pacer issued a public apology for his behaviour. West Indies, however, registered 8-wicket win over England to win the series 2-1. Well, the president of the Peruvian Football Federation, Agustin Lozano, was arrested on Thursday as part of an investigation into alleged money laundering and fraud during his tenure at the helm of the sports organization. Lozano is the second Peruvian soccer boss to be detained since 2018, when his predecessor was investigated for his alleged role in 2 murders for which he was later absolved. Lozano had been under investigation for over a year, even though he has not been criminally charged so far. Authorities said they ordered his arrest because they deemed he is a flight risk and could obstruct their investigation. And now let's show you a light-hearted scene of 2 fluffy baby panda cubs playfully wrestling with each other has been captured at the Chengdu research base of giant panda breeding in southwest China's Sichuan province. A keeper tried to separate them as she held the cubs in her arms. Take a look.
Shiny things, no, in pockets so full.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.